Hey all, John here. Have you ever heard of speedruns? Speedrunning is an incredibly popular form of video game competition, where huge nerds try to beat a game as fast as possible. Speedrunning has evolved from a niche hobby that people enjoy in their free time to one of the biggest gaming categories that people can make a living on. Sometimes even, these dedicated players get together to raise huge amounts of money for charity. It's a pretty cool community to be a part of. And I've been a part of the speedrunning community for about 10 years now. Ever since I was a small itty bitty baby child, I've watched random strangers on the internet throw themselves at the same game over and over just to achieve the perfect run. Eventually, I got into it myself, and my game of choice was Super Mario 64. I mainly ran 16 star, and over the course of a few years, I got the modest time of 17 minutes and 42 seconds. Not too bad, but as life went on, I lost interest in speedrunning. I came back here and there to de-rust, but I never really committed myself. Recently though, I got a fire in my belly to start speedrunning again. But I don't want to commit myself to getting really good at one game. You see, the grind that comes with getting good at a single game is definitely unappealing to me. People dedicate their life and soul to saving mere frames in a speedrun. Yes! Oh my god! So I figured instead of dedicating myself to the hell of grinding a single game, why not get alright at a bunch of them? I'm a person who loves marathons and playing games chronologically. And Mario is an amazing speedrun series with optimized runs in every game. So it was a no-brainer to try the Mario franchise for this challenge. My goal for this challenge is to beat each of the main any% categories in each game in one sitting. All in all, it's gonna take around 17 hours to do a marathon run. For the first run through of each game, I'm just gonna watch a speedrun and then try to emulate it to the best of my abilities. After that, I'm gonna implement the strats that I need to hit my goal time. Then after that, it's time to grind runs and maybe a little bit of practice in between. Luckily, the run routing for Super Mario Bros. 1 is very simple. Get through 1-1, warp to World 4 through 1-2, warp to 8-1 in 4-2, and then get through all of World 8 in just above 5 minutes. Nothing too groundbreaking, right? Without further ado, the initial run. Okay, so I do have to come clean about something. I have watched and done speedruns of this game before, and I got pretty good at 1-1. So I may have a little bit more practice than a usual first run, and this run went pretty well. Oh, and if you need help understanding what these are on the left side of your screen, those are splits. They allow me to break the game into easy to understand time segments so I know how well I'm doing in each run. So I started the game at 1-1. I entered the pipe at the beginning of the level, which saves time over playing through the stage normally. I got through the other pipe at 380 on the clock. And for those of you who know Super Mario Bros. 1, that's actually a perfect start to the level. But for you to understand that, I need to teach you about a little thing called frame rules. Actually, I'm not gonna do that. That's far too complicated, but they are important to understand if you want to get good at speedrunning. I recommend Bismuth's video if you feel like learning more. Anyway, I got to the end of 1-1 with a perfect time. 1-2 is where we saw our first imperfections in this run. I had a slow jump over this Koopa and then actually use him to kill the Goombas up ahead, which is a slow but safe strat. I had slow movement over these pipes and then messed up at the very end near the pipe to World 4. Overall, this was a good 1-2 for somebody who doesn't have any practice in the game. 4-1 is a very simple level. Just hold right and jump over these pipes. Thankfully in this game, the top pixels of piranha plants don't have a hitbox, so you can make it just over the top of them without stopping. This level went pretty smoothly. The only mistake I made was at the staircase at the very end of the level. 4-2 is the next level in the run, and it went pretty well. I made it to the block that has the vine that leads to the warp zone. It was as simple as that. No slowdowns here. Unfortunately, World 8 is where this run actually gets difficult. There will be a lot of strategies for me to learn, but for now, I'm just concerned with getting through the stages. I'm just playing the game sort of casually. I even slowed down to get this invincibility star. Messed up a lot of movement in this stage, but I made it to the end with no problems. And 8-2 was most of the same. I was just concerned with getting through the level. 8-3 is where the first major issue happened in this run. This stage is infamous for its use of Hammer Brothers in their seemingly random patterns throughout the level, which makes it incredibly hard for casual players and even some speedrunners. There are ways to predict how the Hammer Brothers are gonna move, but I'm not there yet. Unfortunately, I fell victim to the randomness of the bros and lost a life. It was pretty early on, thankfully, so I didn't lose too much time. 8-4 is the last stage of the game, as well as the only maze level in this run. You go through this pipe, this pipe, this pipe, swim through here, fight this hammer bro, and then beat Bowser. This level is pretty straightforward until the end. I had to wait for this hammer bro so I could pass underneath him, and then waited for Bowser to jump so I could go underneath him as well. I finished the run with a 6-minute and 9-second time. Not too bad for my first recorded run. This puts me at 1,218th place on the leaderboard. After finishing that first run, it was time to learn some actual strats. Starting with 1-1. My initial run, I actually did this level perfectly, so there isn't anything for me to learn here. The only part of this stage worth practicing is the underground portion. Each time I get here, I need to be able to hop onto the very corner of this ledge. I need to gain full speed, make this jump to make it to the pipe at 380 as consistently as possible. I practiced this stage over and over and over until I could get this level down consistently. Luckily, this won't be a make or break thing for the run since it only saves about 0.3 seconds. There isn't too much to say here, so let's talk about 1-2. There are a couple spots with pretty tight jumps that I need to learn and get consistent on. I need to make Mario jump at this pixel with the smallest possible jump, which while the game is in full speed is pretty hard. But next, I need to jump immediately when I hit the ground to dodge this Goomba and bounce over the next. This is one of the harder sequences in this run, but with a little bit of practice, I got consistent at it. There isn't really anything to learn in 4-1. You just gotta hold right and make it to the end of the level. 4-2, on the other hand, is a level that I have to explain quite a bit. Normally, to get to the World 8 warp zone, you have to hit this vine block and climb up it. But because of the way that warps work in this game, you can actually scroll the screen just enough to go through this pipe to get to the warp zone. I know it doesn't make much sense. I don't understand it either. I just need to know how to do it because it saves time. For whatever reason, if you jump into a block backwards and then land on top, Mario gets pushed a little bit further to the right side of the screen. Doing this in combination with how the warp zones work, you can actually use this pipe to get to the warp zone. As you might imagine, this trick is really hard, but thankfully this is the only thing we need to learn in this level. So I practiced this for quite some time until I was confident enough in this level. World 8 is what separates the babies from the big league players. World 8 is a 4-stage marathon of quick movement, hard jumps, and a good game understanding to succeed. I needed to learn a couple of new tricks for 8-1. The first of which is a pipe jump. I need to jump on the very corner of a pipe to jump once again over a piranha plant. As you can imagine, pipe jumps are super hard. You only have a few frame window to be able to pull this off, and I have to do it 3 times. And there's no real consistent way to do it. You just have to feel it out. The only thing I can do for this is practice over and over and over again. So that's what I did. But other than that, 8-1 is pretty straightforward. There's a whole bunch more mumbo jumbo I could explain, but it's far too complicated for me to convey in a video. Essentially, the stage needs to be played frame perfect for me to hit the correct frame rule. 8-2 isn't really all that bad. It's not as tight as 8-1, but there are a couple tricks to learn. I need to make this tight pipe jump, as well as weave my way through these Koopas at the end of the level. For casual players, 8-3 is an absolute nightmare, but for speedrunners, it's not all that bad. The hammer bros that terrorize new players are actually pretty simple to get past. The hammer bros have set patterns, which makes it pretty easy for me to figure out. 8-4 on paper is pretty easy to get through. You just have to make your way through the maze and not die. But there is one technical glitch that I need to learn. I have to hit this wall jump. And in order to hit this wall jump, I have a 1 to 2 frame window in order to hit jump again to get on top of the pipe. This saves a couple seconds. But after that, all I have to do is make it to the end of the level and beat Bowser. All of that in just over 5 minutes. Now that I learned and practiced all of these strats, it was time for me to implement them in some more runs. Since my first run was just a glorified casual playthrough, I only need to implement a couple easy strats to save a bunch of time. The run that I was able to scrap together was run 7. I didn't get the perfect frame rule in 1-1, and I slowed down on the pipe jump in 1-2. I had a pretty slow 4-2 compared to what I'm capable of. I even died at the beginning of 8-1, which undid any time save I gained prior. Thankfully though, most of my time save comes after that point in the run. I played 8-2 safe, but quick enough to get a rainbow split. And by the way, if you see a rainbow split on the left side of the screen, that means that is the fastest I've ever done that specific level. Then got through 8-3 with no issues at all. 8-4 is where I had the most time saved. Since I was more prepared to get through this level, I had no hesitations at all. Finished my run with a 5:44. Which was a 24-second time save over my first run. It's clear that the practice I did helped me bring my time down really quickly. In this run alone, I had 8 rainbow splits, which brought my best possible time down to 5 minutes and 32 seconds. Which means with all the strats that I decided to use in that run, I was only 23 seconds away from my final goal. Since I didn't use all of my new strats, it seemed that a new PB could be pretty easy to get. I did over another 100 runs during this session, but I came out dry. Here and there, I get a rainbow split or make it really far into a run, but I was never able to finish it off. So after about 2.5 hours of runs, I decided it was time for me to take a break and come back later. So that's what I tried to do. I came back about an hour later and tried to do some more runs. And unfortunately, during this 3-hour session, there was no improvement to be found. I was stuck in World 1 for most of that, making a few runs to World 4 and only a handful all the way to World 8. After day 1 of this challenge, I was incredibly exhausted. Sure, I was only on day 1 and I was less than a minute away from my goal. At the end of a really long gaming session, I was getting really sloppy and making a ton of minor mistakes. So the best thing to do was rest up and just try again tomorrow. I woke up the next day, got on, and decided to brush up on all of the strats that I learned yesterday. And I was getting more consistent for sure, so I decided to do a few more runs. And during my next session, I played horribly. It seemed like my improvement was dropping down rapidly, and it was honestly getting pretty frustrating. My biggest roadblock throughout the entire run was 8-1. The multiple pipe jumps that I needed to do were just too hard for me. So I took another break and decided to practice. And let me just say, that practice time was absolutely worth it. On run 571, things seemed to be on the upturn. This run started off the same as any other. I had a good 1-1, bled a little bit of time in 1-2 due to a small error, and somehow managed to mess up 4-1. But despite of that, I was still ahead of my PB in 4-2. And then I had the best 4-2 so far. I hit a super clean vine skip and ended up getting a rainbow split. And then I had this 8-1. I only had a couple of very minor mistakes in this level, and by the end, I was 22 seconds ahead of my PB. But then this happened in 8-2. All I had to do was wait just a second longer for this piranha plant to go down, and I wouldn't have died in this level. So unfortunately, I threw my best run so far. That could have been that sub 510. So I had to reset. But once again, things were on the upswing on my very next run. I had a pretty close to perfect run all the way through 8-1. But once again, I made a major mistake in 8-2. I learned from my mistake in the last run and waited for the piranha plant this time around. But then I made this mistake just a couple seconds later. So now 2 runs in a row, I died in 8-2. This time, I decided to keep going just for the fun of it. Even with that death at the end of 8-2, I was still a second ahead of my PB. This was still a run that I could salvage. I had perfect Hammer Bro RNG in 8-3, and then I had a great 8-4. I got a rainbow split and then PB'd by 7.1 seconds. After 565 runs, I finally PB'd again. All that this proved was that my goal was actually easily achievable. I died in this run and still PB'd by 7 seconds. That gives me a free 20 to 25 seconds that I can save in my next PB. All I need is a no-death run to get within arm's reach of my goal. About an hour later, I had a run that was on par with my PB until 8-4, and managed to clean up that split just a little bit and PB'd by 0.9 seconds. The fact that I was getting consistent runs all the way through World 8 made me pretty hopeful, but unfortunately throughout the rest of this session, I didn't PB at all. But even though that was true, I knew that I only needed one good run to end this challenge once and for all. And that's exactly what happened during my next session. On run 734, I had my chance to end this once and for all. I made it all the way to 8-2, only making minor mistakes. And in 8-2 itself, I slowed down at the very end just so I could make it through without a problem. I was 27.5 seconds ahead of my PB at the end of 8-2. And in 8-3, I only lost about half a second. As it stood at this point, all I needed to do was play on par with my PB in 8-4, or even a little bit slower. If I could do that, then I could even beat this challenge a couple seconds quicker than my goal. Unfortunately, once again, I missed the wall jump, but I recovered quickly. I made it to the end of Bowser and beat this run at 5 minutes, 10 seconds, and 36 milliseconds. This moment felt bittersweet. On one hand, I beat my PB by over 26 seconds, but on the other hand, I needed to just play half a second faster to beat my goal. There were so many minor mistakes in this run that I could have cleaned up to beat my goal. Now, all I needed to do was get another PB by 0.5 seconds and I would be done with this once and for all. Seems easy, right? Not even close. After countless sessions and hundreds of runs, I was no stranger to losing over and over. Felt like I was banging my head against a wall over and over. So I decided after doing consistent runs for a few days, it was time for a break. So for 3 days, I didn't touch the game at all. And then I came back to do a practice session and then runs. On my 5th run of the session, and my first run out of World 4, I got a 509, bringing myself below my goal and finally completing this challenge. I played within a second of my PB all the way up until 8-2. I knew that I just needed to play on par with my PB and I could get a new best time. And that's what I did. I had a pretty decent 8-3 and a pretty alright 8-4. And I beat Bowser and that was it. And I tell ya, nothing has ever felt better. I felt like I was stuck and like maybe I'd never PB again. I thought that I'd have to scrap this video and I'd never hit my goal, but I did. This video was a ton of fun, so if you enjoyed, let me know in the comments. But other than that, I guess I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.